rather than simply saying all genders are equal. Especially for women and young girls, there is a lack of opportunity that prevents them from realizing the full potential. And a lot of our effort is to try and ensure that there are solutions that can help them or create the right kind of opportunities for women to be able to thrive in society. So if I were to take a step back and say that when we look at, poverty and the lack of opportunity, there are a couple of key factors, and we find that a lot of these factors tend to affect women disproportionately, which is why there is an important need to look at SDG-5 as a separate kind of sustainable development goal. So one aspect of that, and I won't go into, each of the targets under SDG-5. These are things that you can look up on Google and look at, but I'm trying to give you the essence of how we look at SDG-5 and the linkages that we bring from our organization's perspective into improving the opportunities for women, especially in rural and peri-urban communities. So when we look at what contributes into poverty itself, we have this larger piece of climate change and natural disasters, and often women involved in agriculture are facing the brunt of aspects of drought, aspects of heat stress. Aspects of heat stress also tend to affect women disproportionately because maternal care becomes a challenge. There is an increased risk of high-risk pregnancies in these situations. And women who are often working on the land or are tending to cattle, dairy, and poultry tend to be the ones who take the burden of a lot of the drudgery within the work on agriculture or in animal husbandry. And this tends to get worse when water levels are lower, when there are extreme weather conditions in communities. The other thing that we see is that women are also disproportionately affected when you look at social conflicts. There's often discrimination and inequality when there are social and political conflicts, and women become the more vulnerable segment within that. What we've noticed is that policies and schemes are often, blanketed or skewed and tend to provide perverse incentives that don't necessarily improve the needs or conditions of women within communities. And this is kind of, I won't go into this, but this is kind of, reiterating that point on the fact that when we look at climate change and poverty, there is an overlap. And the reason this becomes important is a lot of our other SDGs are linked back to SDG-1, which is on no poverty, and SDG-13, which is on enabling climate action. That not addressing these two together will disproportionately affect certain communities, certain regions, and particularly women within these regions. So maybe here it would be good to give a quick overview of SELCO Foundation itself. SELCO Foundation as an organization looks at decentralized sustainable energy solutions and tries to enable these solutions for last mile communities. We do so by providing sustainable energy for education, for livelihoods, for healthcare, and as a cross-cutting theme, gender equality and empowerment tends to come. So when we say looking at, sustainable energy for education, what are we really referring to? We're saying that there are community institutions on the ground. These may be Anganwadis, which also are part of the maternal care structure within our health systems, right? There are schools and educational institutions, and there are institutions that cater to particularly vulnerable populations. So these may be marginalized women. These may be institutions that are set up specifically to work with people with disabilities, people who are differently abled, and the kind of interventions that we can look at there and this is coming into the solutions, is how do you use sustainable energy as a means to enable development or enable access to basic services. So, in the case of education and community institutions, you find that enabling audiovisual aids, enabling solutions at Anganwadis that also provide for maternal care. So, this may be maternal health checkups, this may be improving nutrition for young children, and for mothers who are accessing services at the Anganwadi. Or it may be institutions that work with people with disabilities, where you have often you have marginalized women and individuals with disabilities catered to within these institutions, who are provided training. But for them to actually look at employment, then you have to have a sustainable energy powered sewing machine, or a sustainable energy powered flour milling machine, or some kind of productive use asset that can be powered through decentralized solar powered energy. But combined with efficient appliance and the appropriate solution, these can really enable improvements for women in these kind of institutions. A second key aspect which I touched upon is the link that you have between sustainable energy, healthcare, and women's empowerment. A lot of our primary healthcare, or rather a significant component of our primary healthcare, is really about enabling solutions for maternal and child care. When you look at women in last mile communities, they may not be able to access the nearest subcenter because the subcenter itself is not functioning. And the reason it's not functioning is because they don't have electricity, so they're no longer able to do things like delivery. In states like Meghalaya, where distances are long, within the primary healthcare system, you have subcenter, you have the primary health center, and then you have the community health center, district hospital, and so on. For a woman who's trying to access basic maternal care, if the subcenter is not functional, she then has to travel 30, 40 kilometers, sometimes in very difficult terrains. So even if the distance is only 10 kilometers, it requires, covering hilly terrains or forested areas. And therefore, the access for her to even get a basic checkup or to actually deliver becomes much harder. So by looking at sustainable energy for healthcare, what we're trying to do is decentralize healthcare provision. Where, for example, if you look at the picture that we have, here, it's a portable solar powered maternal health kit. What this does is it enables the ASHA worker to go to the last mile and check women and their newborn babies for key vital indicators. So this may have a solar powered fetal Doppler. It may have a solar powered mobile charging and light unit just for the ASHA worker to get along. It may have specific kits that can test for high risk pregnancies, that can also test for the basic health of a child. Right? And this is part of ensuring that healthcare delivery can happen for a woman in the last mile. That way, what you're ensuring is that if a woman is identified with high-risk pregnancies, she's immediately referred to the primary health center or to the district hospital, where she'll have to go deliver. When we start to look at solar powering of sub-centers, then what we're saying is, in a state like Meghalaya, where technically sub-centers are supposed to enable labor care and delivery for women, by providing solar powered solutions and having a spotlight for the actual delivery, a comfortable, well ventilated space with lighting, with thermal comfort, ensures that a woman who's accessing that or who's delivering in that subcenter can do it in good comfort, convenience, and her health and safety can be ensured. Right? By having an infant baby warmer, you can ensure that the health of the child is also ensured post-delivery. And by having basic laboratory equipment and emergency services provided for or powered at that subcenter, we ensure that the risk for the woman who's coming and delivering there is reduced, and thereby ensuring better well-being and health. Right. Another aspect is, of course, solar powering some of these facilities from the point of view of vaccination and immunization, which again is part of the broader effort of maternal and childcare, which directly links back to good health, well-being, and gender empowerment. One aspect that I just want to highlight is when we look at health facilities and healthcare delivery and the link to SDG-5, it's not simply about women who can access healthcare, but it's also about women who are working as health workers, as ASHA workers, as midwives and nurses at these facilities. Now, imagine that you're in rural Odisha, in tribal Odisha in Kalahandi, and you are a female nurse who is the only person who is stationed at that subcenter, right? And in a rural area, the lack of energy in the subcenter means that your staff quarters also doesn't have electricity. So suddenly you're not just the health worker who's trying to provide services in the absence of energy and efficient appliances for the end users. You're also a woman who is standing in a rural area with complete lack of electricity access, which has safety concerns and also well-being concerns when you're looking at these individuals stationed in these remote areas. So by enabling sustainable energy, what you're also doing is making sure that female health workers have adequate safety and adequate comfort in their workspaces. So an aspect of SDG-5 is that you're enabling appropriate work conditions so that a woman is able to be part of the economy, the healthcare system, and be able to discharge her duties properly. And this is part of that equality of opportunity piece, that now the staff quarters and the subcenter or the PHC are solar powered, and therefore the female nurse is able to undertake her activities. And there are a number of instances that we've seen where this is a key impact that a lot of people see when you solar power health facilities, that not just the end users are benefiting, but the healthcare workers are benefiting. And instances where nurses and midwives are able to then say, okay, I want to still stay here. Otherwise, you have a large problem of retention of staff, of health staff in these facilities, because a woman in a remote area with a lack of electricity access has safety concerns, and therefore she doesn't want to even stay there anymore. And so the health system then faces a challenge of retaining good healthcare workers and good nurses and midwives. By enabling this kind of and I want to clarify that we're not suggesting that energy is a silver bullet to all the problems in any of these sectors, but it's part of enabling the process of setting up or facilitating proper healthcare delivery, right? Where you then provide that opportunity and you're providing appropriate work conditions for a woman to actually be able to function in that area. If we were to look at livelihood improvements and income improvements, that's another area where we see that by providing assets that are properly financed for the needs of women, you can actually ensure that women can become micro entrepreneurs in their own space, that women self-help groups can run small processing units that are powered off sustainable energy, but look at millet processing or rice processing for the local community, reducing their need to travel far distances in order to be able to access rice milling or flour milling or cold storage solutions. And you're bringing that closer to the end user. So in that process, you're looking at women both as micro entrepreneurs as well as end users. I just want to take a quick time check because I know it's 12:15, and we want to allow for some time for questions. But the other 2-3 slides that I have are a few more examples of women in entrepreneurship, women as end users, and women in the larger ecosystem. So I just want to take a quick.
Yeah, that should be okay. You can go ahead because
Okay.
we are running late by another 10-15 minutes,
Okay.
but we have a longer lunch break. So, we,
Okay, so I'll wrap up in 5 minutes, and then we can have questions and discussions.
okay.
Um, so I think when we look at any solution being deployed, and I've taken the specific example of sustainable energy solutions, and you'll hear a lot more about this in the upcoming sessions as well, where SDG-7 is a focus that Dr. Dheeraj is looking at. But I think to highlight that for any solution that we implement on the ground, how do you ensure that all the pieces of the ecosystem are also catering to or taking note of the needs of women, and the role of women is accounted for in this process, right? So when we look at innovation and technology, one of the things that comes up is that you see that there are equipment in the market for, let's say, rice milling or agro processing, where just the physical burden of starting the diesel generator and getting the machine started is something that requires a lot more muscle power, which means that it doesn't cater to the average woman. So technologies are often built without considering that there is another gender that is fully capable of running the business, but the solution itself is not innovated in a manner that can meet their needs. And I think this is particularly important when we talk to universities and the way research, academia, and industry can work together, is that a lot of these problems are innovation challenges, right? Especially when we come to the technology piece, where you're looking at efficient appliances that are also catering to the needs of certain communities. And this is going beyond gender, but talking about, for example, differently abled people. When you look at something like a roti rolling machine, right? So this is a machine that in North Karnataka, and you're all in the heart of the area, where for getting those jowar rotis, there are women entrepreneurs who are sitting and rolling the rotis and then cooking them and selling them on as part of their business. Now, if I was a woman entrepreneur with a certain spinal cord injury or a physical disability, I'm not able to stand and operate even the solar powered roti rolling machine, which means that the solution has not been innovated in a manner that caters to my marginalized needs. So we've been trying to work with innovators to also see how do you cater to one, less muscle power. That doesn't mean women alone, but it caters to people with a less muscle power. So I shouldn't have to work on pulling a diesel generator. I should have a solution that is catered to my needs as well. How do you work on innovations and technologies that cater to differently abled people, just in terms of the structure? If I'm sitting down, can I still operate a solar powered roti rolling machine or a sewing machine, right? Those are considerations that need to be taken into account when we look at innovation and technology, particularly from the angle of SDG-5. When we look at financing, that's another piece where affordable financing products that cater to last mile communities. We find that with the self-help group movement and the SHG group movement, you find a lot more women involved in savings and lending. How can financial institutions, we have the likes of SKDRDP functioning across Karnataka, that create these women's groups and help them take loans specifically for micro entrepreneurship, right? To purchase an asset to try and see how they can better their livelihoods. And to have that support system with the SHG and with the local NGO or the local government departments that are providing the relevant funds for them to be able to set up these kind of entrepreneurial ventures or cater to their financing needs. And this might mean then allowing for collections that happen at the last mile itself. Are there collectors and BCs, because women are engaged in their household activities and their agricultural activities through the day and through the night? They may not have time to go to the bank and deposit their EMI. But is the financial product that is created, catering to their needs and allowing for a collection agent or a BC to come and pick up the EMI from their doorstep, right? And this is not just about the financial product, but it's also the process by which financing is enabled for last mile. We now have more policies that also try and focus on women. There are banks that say, okay, we have a Mudra loan, which is a loan for micro entrepreneurs, but can we make sure that these loans are also specific targets are set for, let's say, Mahila Mudra, which was a syndicate bank initiative to encourage the number of women accessing loans and providing a slightly lower interest rate to encourage that process of accessing these funds. Another is the Asha Vikas scheme that the Karnataka Vikas Gramin Bank has put forward, where they're catering or trying to focus on identifying women entrepreneurs and lending to them at a slightly lower interest rate or a collateral-free loan that makes it easier. And I think the linkages part is really where working with local NGOs and government departments that are providing the inputs and the market linkages, or providing the healthcare services, if you're talking about health, to actually enable the outcome to happen from SDGs, not just having, if in the case of sustainable energy, you can put a solar powered sewing machine, but if the lady does not have more a market linkage to sell these extra blouses or these extra shirts to, there's income generation is not going to happen, right? Or if you have a milking machine that reduces the drudgery involved in milking, which often falls on the woman, and you have a solar powered milking machine that can automate the process, but then there is no milk collection center close by, then that income improvement that you want to see is not going to happen. So the linkages become critical also when you enable assets or solutions that cater to women. And I'll end with a few examples by saying that, in any ecosystem, when you provide solutions, a key aspect is not just seeing women as end users, but also seeing them as entrepreneurs. So just to give you two, three examples. There are women that have set up local energy enterprises, or women that work as service associates and business associates, in the case of decentralized energy solutions specifically, as an example, where this is Miss Usha. She is from Chikmagalur in Karnataka, and her work, she was a teacher earlier, and she heard about the fact that there are solar powered solutions that are being given out, that are being sold in the local area, and she wanted to become a commission agent for identifying the needs, and to be able to provide the appropriate solution for these last mile end users, right? So what she also did was to say that if I have to identify these needs, as a woman, I'm able to work through different self-help groups as well. So she attends different self-help group meetings to try and give them greater awareness about solar energy solutions that are there for livelihoods, that are there for basic well-being, solar powered lighting, solar powered sewing machines, printers, laptops, petty shops, and how you can include refrigeration and so on. And then once they say, okay, I'm interested, she tries to work with the SHG to see how they can get a bank loan to be able to finance this system. Another example is Miss Nagaveni, who's also from Karnataka, South Karnataka, where she works as a service associate. So what she does is actually do the installation and the servicing of solar powered systems in different households and in different livelihoods. She first took a technical training from a local energy enterprise, the SELCO India enterprise, and then has started doing this as, again, within her local area, all of the installations and servicings that are required, she takes them on, and is able to do everything from actually installing the panel on the roof and setting up the battery to doing regular maintenance and spare part repair. And I think for us she stands out also as an example, because we find that often women are encouraged to do certain kinds of businesses and are told technical jobs may not be for women. But she stands as an example as a rural woman who is able to discharge the same kind of functions that you expect out of, let's say, a system designer or an installer. And she's able to do it within her local community. Having gotten the training, and stands as kind of an inspiration for others within the area. And she passed out of the 8th standard and was looking for jobs because her family income situation required it. But she's then able to set herself up as a local design, installation and maintenance expert, and she's now involved in training of other women as well, as how do you manage when you're a woman trying to do all of these efforts as installation or maintenance or certification. How do you do that as a woman on the last mile? I think I'll stop with that. I think there are multiple examples of how women kind of play a role in different parts within the ecosystem, and how they can benefit from assets and from solutions on the ground. But how do we look at the ecosystem so that women are considered and the role of women is also highlighted in each of these? I'll stop here and sorry, I think I took 10 minutes longer than I had expected.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Surabhi. Now, I think the floor is open for question answers. Yeah. Yes, so if you have any questions, please come here. Because the point that is made is gender equality. Yeah. How do you educate women for entrepreneurship? You can come there and ask questions. Is it audible, Ms. Surabhi?
I can hear you, sir. I'm not able to hear anyone else right now.
Yeah. Madam, if I am audible?
Yes.
Madam, they often say that if you educate a woman, it's like educating the entire family. So how does women empowerment have a greater impact compared to doing other developmental activities in the society? Could you please reflect on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, the idea is also that...
maybe I would like to just clarify my question.
Please.
Empowering a woman will be having a cumulative effect that gives us a bigger picture, or that leads to multiple effect that can contribute more towards society development.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the context for this is also that historically we're all in patriarchal societies where it is more difficult for a woman to, let's say, access certain kinds of opportunities, access certain kinds of assets, or access certain kind of financing in order to be able to start their own business, take on their livelihoods, or access healthcare, right? So I think with empowering a woman, obviously there is a greater scope of then ensuring that there is equal participation of women within the economy, and also that they are able to ensure these similar kind of opportunities for their children. And we all know that youth and children play a critical role in the next generation of efforts. And so ensuring that the woman has, when I say livelihoods and income generation, that she is an equal part of the economy and of the functioning society. She is able to take back income that then enables the family to be able to see better, and also ensuring that her health and well-being are on par with what is required, ensures that again that she's able to contribute into society, and that the general system that we're living in is operating at an optimum level. I think one thing to also take note of when we talk about women's empowerment is also to say that we need more gender sensitivity in general and gender sensitive men. So the entire onus cannot just fall on women being empowered, but rather that equality of opportunity being seen for by men as an important aspect as well, right? And I think just the last thing to say is that it's the and I come back to my point on equality of opportunity, and that equality of opportunity has to be there for different marginalized segment. Women happen to be one large piece of the population, but then you have transgender communities, you have LGBTQ communities, you have marginalized individuals because they are differently able, and all of them need to be provided with that equality of opportunity if we really want to see, societal improvements.
Ma'am, is it the empowerment or the empathy that matters more in the, the process of making a society better?
Yeah. I think, and maybe this is a personal opinion, but I think the empathy is kind of the first step. Proactive action, which we can refer to, which then leads to empowerment, is another critical aspect. And that proactive action may be to say that, okay, we will create financial products that ensure that women or any other vulnerable individuals within a certain society are able to access these services. So if you go to Meghalaya, women form a large part of micro entrepreneurial business, right? There is a matriarchal aspect to the society. But if you go to a different part of India, you might find that that opportunity is not there. So that affirmative action in that specific context, that comes after a first level, base level of empathy and sensitivity. Perhaps calling it sensitivity ensures that people are aware and can acknowledge that certain communities, certain individuals have privileges and others don't. To enable the next step of action, we all need to agree that, okay, if we have privilege, there is a reason we have privilege. And maybe me as a woman may not need the same kind of affirmative action as someone in rural Kalahandi. Even though their acumen is higher, their ability to do business is higher, but they don't have that same opportunity. So creating that opportunity is the next level after the first level of empathy and sensitivity. And that affirmative action can then lead to empowerment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Some section of the women demand for the period leaves, and something that it is not necessary. So, what is your say on it? And if yes, it will it affect the overall employment or recruitment of the woman from the recruiter point of view?
Yeah. So I think there are certain, biological considerations, and there are a lot of debates about this online. So maybe I should restrict my comments to kind of my personal opinions on this. I think that that leave for periods should be considered as part of sick leave, taking note of biological considerations, right? So just like you have maternity leave, you also have certain kinds of leave that might be required because of biological considerations. Also to say that paternity leave is a very important part of enabling this kind of empowerment. And now I'm going beyond just saying, leaves for menstrual cycle, but unless you have paternity leave that provides an opportunity for the woman to have an equal, or rather the man to have an equal share in raising the child, you will find that the entire burden falls on the woman, and then she's not able to engage in regular economy. There are certain biological functions because of which, let's say, 6 months of maternity leave is required, but unless you get that 6 weeks or 3 months of paternity leave, you're not going to have an equal opportunity for women to engage in or share responsibility in terms of raising children. And I'm extending the topic of leaves related to menstrual cycle to saying leaves related to biological needs. But I think there's an equal case to be made that unless you have that paternity leave, you won't be able to ensure that women have an equal opportunity. In the same way, unless you ensure that there are sick leaves for certain biological needs that women have, you won't be able to ensure that they're able to be productive in society for the remaining 27 days or 28 days. And again, I will say this is a personal opinion. Not all women need it, but whenever a woman needs it, how can you consider it?
Okay, so we can end this session here. Thank you, Surabhi, for this talk. Okay, so we will connect to you tomorrow,
Sure.
right? So thank you again.
Thank
And
you.
we will break for lunch now. So after this, we'll have another. So this was the first session on SDG 7, SDG 5. We'll have other SDG sessions for half an hour sessions. So that at the end of the day, we are going to have a workshop basically. So we will brainstorm on the problems that are there in the society in these SDGs. So that is the idea of the workshop. Okay, thank you, Survi,
Thank
again.
you so much. Thank you, Professor. Have a good day. Bye.